Hi.
Hello. What are we doing today?
Should we say our names?
Yes.
Who are you?
I am Pickering Fitness, otherwise known as Christopher.
I'm Suesbo, otherwise known as Suze.
We both got herpes.
Yes, we did. Fuck.
Not together. Separate occasions.
Together separately.
Yes.
Yeah.
In spirit, we were there. But we're going to eat some food. We're going to answer some questions, some juicy questions about herpes.
Yeah, we asked for you guys to submit any questions. Nothing's too TMI. While we eat and talk herpes, which the trolls might have something to say about, but
I'm not going to like that.
it's building up my appetite. I don't know about you.
Hungry for herpes. What do we have here?
Yeah, let's see.
We got some pho. The bowl is too large, but it's okay. I'll show you
You
guys.
should tilt it and show.
Ooh, tilt.
And then just spill it out onto the sushi.
We also have to think about the thumbnail.
Right.
Let's have a snack here. I feel like we haven't had enough food yet.
Okay, so what I have here is vegan sushi from a local spot. And any vegan haters that are like, why do you eat stuff that tastes like meat? Shut up. But this is okay, well, it just fell into the thing. It's a avocado torched sushi with truffle glaze on it.
Whoa, we're getting fancy up in here.
Mm-hmm. Really good.
Oh.
What's that thing called where you don't like the sound of people eating? Do you have that? Because we're right beside each other, so I'm nervous that my chewing is gonna
I don't know what that's called, but I know.
I think it's called Misonia or something.
Depends on the person, Mostly just if I hate the person, I'll hate the chewing, but...
Some people do chew unreasonably loud.
People without herpes, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so I could start. I have a basic question that got asked of both of us that I could start us with because it's a good starter.
Yes.
It's how did you get herpes?
Is this played for me?
Yes.
Excellent. How did I get herpes?
How did you get the herpy dirt? The herpy.
Well, when a mother and a father love each other. No.
Birds and the bees.
I met up with this individual, okay? Sparks were flying. Well, not really, but...
I love it. Let's hear it like a romance novel.
Well, matched with some girl, had some chemistry. I was a horny individual during 2020. Not much to do, Have some snacks here.
So during COVID, I know I saw some TikToks like that where people were like, I didn't get COVID, but I got herpes.
I got both, but but yes, so this was September 2020, talking to this random person, met up with them, knew them for an hour and a half. We engaged in activities together. Didn't use protection, because that's another story, but we'll go in depth maybe at a different date. Everything was fine. Had a lovely time. I believe the next day, we engaged in activities again under my... What am I trying to say? How do I say this? As far as I know, I think that they didn't have an outbreak at the time, but having sex caused them to develop an outbreak. And if everything was fine the first time I had sex, I didn't think anything otherwise the next time. And I do believe I got it during an outbreak that they had.
So the second time you think they were developing the outbreak and that's when you contracted it?
Yes, because when they also went to the doctor, to get antivirals, to get checked basically, because they had some symptoms. So maybe I gave them herpes, but probably not, judging by the whatever the word is, judging by the severity of my first outbreak.
I was gonna say that is a factor, right? Because that's what led me to believe my flare-up was my first one, is it was pretty severe and I was really sick. So I didn't think it could have been dormant all that time and then come out as a first time flare-up. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It would have come out maybe more mild or that's something I've always wondered, but
yes.
As you'll see, there's a lot of things about herpes that are kind of gray because it's a tricky motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
We can swear, right?
Yeah.
It's a tricky damn virus. Sometimes, it works in mysterious ways.
Yeah. I'm not really mad. Things happen,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on good terms with this person, and they have a new partner who they disclosed to. So if they didn't find out until now, or until I met them. So
you helped them, perhaps.
Not spread it even more. It's a selfless act.
So do they know, like, you're still friends, they know that you're a herpes advocate?
Yes, yeah, they've watched like a lot of my videos.
That's awesome. Learning together.
Yeah, learning together. How long did it take you to feel like you weren't unworthy because of your diagnosis?
How long did it take you to feel like you weren't unworthy? Damn. Do you want to answer that first?
So, it's all like a blur. Like, I wish I could go back and rewatch my life from like the diagnosis onward, because it was like, the first outbreak was like a month long, and then I had another outbreak a week later.
A month long?
Yeah, I had like 2 weeks of pain and then 2 weeks of itchiness. And then I had another outbreak like a week later. And then I just had a whole bunch of other like health consequences and stuff, and I thought my life was over. But like for me, I never felt as like stigmatized long term. Like I never felt like I was unworthy or dirty. I just felt like I had to tell people this, unfortunately, and that like I wasn't going to be able to have sex again, and then I wasn't going to find anyone to accept me. But I never felt like, whatever the word is, like damaged. A little bit damaged. But
Dirty.
the thing about like being a guy also is like, I was like going on dates like a month after I got diagnosed, just because I still wanted to like be social and like not take myself out of dating to the point where I would have trouble like getting back into it or something. And then again, like I think that, I'm just gonna say this, I think that girls are like the gatekeeper to sex more so than guys are. So there was never like an expectation that I had to have sex with them the way that like you may feel. So it was kind of like, hey, like let's see if I meet someone that I like, and then maybe I'll get to the point of disclosing, even though I've never actually disclosed before.
Right, like it might not even come up.
Yeah. So I like went on dates like in October and November and stuff, like, and I was diagnosed in September. So I don't know if I ever felt like unworthy, but I definitely was like, I have to tell someone at some point, and that scares me.
Yeah,
But,
that's a big thought
yeah.
when you first get it.
Definitely after you meet someone and then have sex successfully, that's like a huge confidence boost.
Yeah.
Where you can be like, oh, I disclosed and you're okay and you don't have herpes now automatically. Whoa, this is like normal life again. So.
Exactly. You're like, okay, well, it doesn't really change that much. It's just like the knowledge of it between you and your partner. That's it. And, you know, I think we know this, but could say that like that first flare up is usually the worst. Like mine was pretty bad, right? Like it's like mine lasted, I think. And I wonder if it's because like by the time we realize it's herpes, it's like late in the game to get the antivirals for it. You know what I mean? So it kind of runs its natural course, which can take longer. Because recurring flare-ups tend to be like milder and quicker. But mine was pretty rough too, because it was like, I think 2 weeks, and then I also got a second flare-up like a week later. And I was like, fuck this. Like, it felt awful, and like that's why like I always try to tell people who just got it that their current initial experience with it is not what it's going to be like, because that's not what their recurring flare-ups are going to be like. Assuming you get a flare-up, an initial flare-up, that's like hard to deal with. And same thing can happen if you get oral herpes, by the way. Your first oral herpes flare-up can be like more severe and like make you feel like you have a flu. But that can add to those feelings of unworthiness, because you're like, wow, it's gonna be like this all the time. You know what I mean? You kind of forget your body's gonna heal, it's gonna recover from it. You might get another flare-up like never, or like a few months from now, or so mild that you don't even notice it. So getting through that initial phase is really important, and I think that was my like hardest, darkest moment, is just feeling like, you know, this is so physically uncomfortable. And then like I did feel the weight of the stigma, because I was just like, how the hell are people gonna accept me for this? And the partner I got it from, I was still dating for like almost a year after. So I did have the side where it was like, okay, well, I'm still with someone who also has it, and I don't have to worry about it with him. But I definitely felt like I'm just gonna stick with him. Like, I was in love with him. It wasn't really a question for me, and if anything, I was very blindly in love because I didn't piece things together for so long. But I was like, I'm gonna stick with this situation because otherwise when I'm single, it's gonna be hard, you know? And when we finally broke up, like when I found out about all the cheating and everything and I left him, I was totally like I was facing that unworthiness like all over again, because I was like, now I'm single, now I have to think about disclosing to new people, and now I feel really unworthy because I also just got cheated on for like over a year. And man, it took a while for me, but I think once I was single, I also pretty quickly dated because I really wanted to prove to myself, like, can someone accept this? Am I gonna have a good time? And like, I did. I had a successful one night stand like a month after. You know, it was kind of a rebound thing. I just like needed to feel good again. The person was kind of sketch for other reasons. They also didn't want to use a condom. They were trying to convince me not to use a condom. So I was like, okay, not only are people accepting, but they are not as concerned about it as I thought. But the worthiness came from like a lot of internal work, I would say. Like rebuilding my confidence, my self-worth, healing from everything I went through, reconnecting with my own sexuality and sexual expression. Like that's what kind of sensuality is all about, and like stuff that I focus on my social media. So how can I receive and give oral sex, and should I always use oral barriers? Getting into some juicy sex details.
Is that from a girl or a guy, or doesn't really matter?
I would say we could talk about it both ways, because yeah, I'm not sure.
So if you have genital HSV1, I don't even know how to answer these questions. I guess if you have genital HSV1 and your partner also has HSV1, possibly like they get cold sores, you're not likely to transmit it to them. And then like, I don't actually know the shedding rates of genital HSV1 if your partner wasn't to have it, but it's probably unlikely that you'll pass it to them through oral sex. And then if you have HSV2, like it doesn't really prefer to transfer orally. I mean, I have received oral sex without protection and not had any transmission occur.
Yeah.
So,
like, as much as people want to be like, HSV2 is the bad one, that's our silver lining, baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's such an interesting thought to me, because it's like, have you or would you ever have used protection for oral sex before? Like based on what you knew about sex?
I've never seen a dental dam either. Like,
no, I've never seen one in a store. I know that people can fashion them out of condoms. You can like cut them out to use as a dental dam. The condoms taste awful unless they're like flavored or whatever. Yes, that's the whole point of flavored condoms. And I'm not knocking anyone who chooses to use protection for oral sex, but I'm just gonna say that like, I really don't think most people do or think about that. Because a lot of the STI risks with oral sex tend to be lower. It's not that there's none. Like, you can get other STIs, not just herpes, but yeah, it's like such a weird double standard, because we don't tend to do that until we get a diagnosis like herpes. And I remember that being my first thought and worry. Like, I was literally on the phone with like a helpline, like a sexual health helpline, which I didn't know that was even a thing. And I was like, is anyone ever gonna go down on me again? Like, that was like my number one fear. And luckily the very kind lady on the phone was like, absolutely they are. Like, no, you don't have to use dental dams. Because yeah, I didn't even hear about a dental dam until I got herpes and started reading about it. And I just had this notion that we are stuck with it. Like, we have to now use dental dams whenever anyone goes down on us, or condoms or whatever. But it's not the case. Like, you can choose to if you're worried about it. And I would say there's more of a risk when someone who gets oral herpes is performing oral.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not worried about, and I'm not saying you have to worry in that scenario either. Like, it's up to you and your partner. But I'm certainly not as worried about receiving, because the chances that they will get my HSV2 orally are like next to nothing, you know? And would still be pretty low even with HSV1. Did I say HSV1 or 2? Whatever, same thing applies. But yeah, I mean, if you really want to, you can use protection, but there's nothing saying that you have to, you know? So
Live your life.
live your life. Let them snack on that sushi, you know what I mean? Just like right here, this is it.
Yeah.
This right here.
Watermelon.
Watermelon.
Is it possible to go back to feeling as carefree and happy as before one gets a diagnosis?
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
That's deep.
That's what she said.
I think the answer is yes. It also depends on the situation. Like, the most amount of carefree would be like you find a partner who also has the same diagnosis as you, and then you essentially don't really have any like precautions that are necessary. But even if you don't, like the people that I've like dated in the past, once you get over like the first time you have sex with them and you're like, oh, this is kind of scary, but everything's fine now. You don't typically think about your herpes like after that, basically, unless you were to have like an outbreak or it comes up again. But typically, like, you forget that you have it when everything is like fine, and it's only like disclosing and having to bring it up and having to date, or people feel like this is how I'm gonna feel all the time.
I would agree with that 100%. So I have nothing to add.
You can be carefree, okay?
Yeah. It's all a state of mind. Like, yeah, I think it definitely comes with like growing ease with a partner and with yourself. Like, I think you can get used to your diagnosis and normalize it for yourself and destigmatize it for yourself. It just takes some like mental work, you know?
And if you really think about it, everyone who has cold sores is probably having a carefree life more so than we are.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they also have herpes. It's just...
I also think like, how would I be much more carefree without herpes? Because I would still think about like, is this partner safe for me? Could I still have something? Could I get something from them? Like, I relate to people who are like hypochondriacs and have health anxiety, because I dealt with a lot of that earlier on. And I think I would worry anyway. You know what I mean? To a degree. Like, I wish I was carefree enough to just like have a one-night stand every day, but my brain gets in the way of that, you know? Yeah.
At least we can't get herpes again.
Already got it! Did you ever watch those G.I. Joe dubs? There's like G.I. Joe PSAs that used to run, and they like dub over them.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, thanks. A very specific reference and way passe. Okay, so how to overcome the feeling of rejection before you've even disclosed.
How do you get over the fear of like being rejected before you even talk to someone? You assume you're gonna be rejected, so you're scared of that.
Right.
That's gonna come from you not fully accepting that you have this now. And that if you think you'll be rejected, it's because you think you have something to be rejected for, or you think that like their rejection is somehow going to be worse than if they rejected you for another reason, or like before you even had herpes, basically. And I'm like, recently I've been saying like you can change the wording from like rejected to just like not indifference. What am I saying? Like, they're just not interested and you're not compatible. It's not that you're being rejected because there's something really wrong with you. It's just that like they're not interested, basically.
Like, what are other reasons, to your knowledge, if you want to share, that you've been rejected for? Because I have like I know I've been rejected for being Polish. Someone told me that Polish women are evil and they unmatched me. Literally, true story. And I am evil. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I guess people don't always tell you, but...
I've been rejected by people who are slightly taller, who that was obviously like a deal breaker, which is fine. Because I probably wouldn't want to pursue someone who's like quite taller than me, but like these are all things that I can't control basically, including herpes, so it's not really a big deal. Like it's just, you know?
Yeah.
On to the next one.
Yeah, literally. I was saying it and I wrote it in my story the other day, but like the quote for me is like, DJ Khaled, another one.
Another one.
Yeah.
It's just like, this one's out, another one.
And you'll forget about them.
You really do. Like, I mean, I'll like text my friends about like, oh my God, this guy's like so cute. And then I'm like, oh my God, it didn't work out because this is, and then I'm like,
there's another one, he's so cute.
Here's another, which one is it? Is it like, you know, the identifier? We all do that. We're just like, do you mean like motorbike Bob or like
Blue Eyes Sailor?
Do you do that too? Do you have like identifiers for who you're talking about?
No, I'm a guy. There's only usually one.
Yeah, I definitely think that like if you preemptively reject yourself, you're gonna come into that conversation with that energy and you're almost like asking someone to reject you. But I agree with you about like not like the word and notion of rejection feels so harsh, but like it's such a natural part of dating. Like it's just like there's so many people we go through with or without herpes that don't align with us. But I do think the way that you come into it makes such a difference. Like if I'm chatting with different people on a night where I'm in a worse mood and like I'm more down about it and I'm kind of like expecting negative results, I tend to like get that. But I've said it before, like I'll make a night of it where I'm like, I like dress up in something fun, like pour myself a glass of wine or whatever, put on music, and treat the chatting almost like a fun like activity for the night. And then I like find myself coming into these conversations with so much more like confidence and like wit, and sometimes I even disclose in that mood with like more humor, and it goes over so much better. And like I'm just really like, I've been learning to not take it personally and be thankful that if someone doesn't want to date me because I have herpes, like it's fine, you know. And if they're rude about it in any way, shape, or form, which I've never really had, but like the worst has been maybe like unmatching or ghosting, I wouldn't want to deal with someone like that anyway, whether it's casual or not. Like I wouldn't want someone who doesn't have the decency to like respond thoughtfully to my disclosure, or just like say, hey, like I appreciate that, but it's not something I'm comfortable with, whatever. But yeah, I think it's really important to like build up your own self-worth and come into these conversations feeling good, you know?
Okay, so next question is going to be disclosure stories, like great ones and ones where you may have messed up. So like,
ooh,
yeah,
I love it.
So I actually have like an interesting thing here where I was talking to this girl back in February, and this is why we were talking about how like you bring it up as jokes, right? And I basically, what was she? I don't know what we were talking about. Something about like selling photos on Bumble, basically, and like, so you're like selling feet photos or selling things, and she said she's not an avid Bumbler, and she was too lazy. She's too lazy to message first. So I said, "How come you messaged me?" And I did think you were cute. I was hoping we'd smash by tonight, and I'd quit it. I'm joking. And then I basically said, I better disclose my genital herpes then.
That's great. That's good.
And then, like, this is me, like, not really caring, but obviously, like, wanting to tell someone as well. Well, there's some voice notes here. I'm not going to share those, but I feel like...
I know.
Because I forget what they said, but it was something along... We can just play it, you know?
I was trying to be a fuckboy, but, yeah, genital herpes, gotta want to do it. No thanks.
Oh my god.
No, it's fine. And then I'm like, okay, so I guess it ends here then. What do they say here?
It's AIDS or nothing. Come on. Get with the game. That's what Bumble's all about.
I wasn't really joking, though.
Was that you playing the...
They're playing it now.
They're playing that music?
Yeah, it's like all part of the joke. And then I was like, what is the context for this song? Wait, do you not know this song? I said Jeopardy, and they say, oh, okay. The context is Herpes Worth a cute guy? And then I said, you can think it over and stuff, and blah, 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 blah. I can't tell if you're serious. And I say, that's the best part. So, that's an example of like me bringing it up jokingly.
My mouth is gaping open this whole time.
I met this person. We got along great.
Really?
Yeah. This was not.
This
like,
wasn't
we
a bad
got along
one?
like very, 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 very well. I just like, there was no like absolute spark.
So
but,
they
like,
were down.
Yeah. Like they probably
Oh.
would have wanted to pursue things further. That's why I say like dating is not like, like we went on a date and it went from like getting coffee and then we spent like 8 hours together.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't really know if I'm into this, but
See,
I
I thought
enjoy
that
it.
was going to go in a totally different
That's what I
direction because
do.
her initial voice note was so like rude, but
Yeah.
then which
Like,
is funny because she thought it kind of was honest
Mhm.
of her, like she even if she thought you guys were joking around, that would be like a rude thing to say, but she came around like, wow.
yeah, and I explained like, oh, I like talk about it on TikTok and whatever and stuff like that.
So you've made an impact on someone that was previously maybe stigmatized against it and is now going to be different about it with the next person.
Hopefully, yeah.
That's awesome. The voice note thing is so funny. I like haven't used voice notes yet with
Oh, I
dating.
do that all the time.
I love it. Oh my god. So okay, so that was a good one. Do you have a bad one to share?
I really don't have like, I've never like messed up a disclosure, but I've obviously had people who like, I had some random crazy girl like block me on like Snapchat because she thought it was like HIV. She's like, I'm scared to get HIV, and she was like a little bit cuckoo, and like something was wrong with her, but she blocked me after I told her like that herpes is HSV or whatever. And then I had another person who, we went on a first date and everything was like okay, and then they saw through social media that like I had herpes, and she's like, is that an STI? And I said, yeah. And she's like, we better cancel our second date. And I was like, okay.
You better go get
So
tested and
like,
see if you
yeah,
have
like,
herpes.
so that's when people say like, did it ever go badly? Like, that's the two examples, like being blocked and having someone be like, I don't want to be with you because of your herpes.
yeah.
Other than that, like, I'm sure people have like ghosted me or rejected me, but they haven't verbally said like, this is because of your herpes, and like that's fine.
Yeah, I definitely have scenarios where they just like stop responding, but I've had that happen without disclosing, so it could be because of the herpes, it could not be. Sometimes I give it some time for them to come around maybe, but then I'm like, nah, fuck it, like another one. Move on to the next, right?
So there you go.
These are so good, by the way. If you want to take out some donuts.
What do we have here? What kind of donuts are these?
So these are vegan donuts also. I'm like mostly vegan, like I've been eating like over 10
What is
years.
this one? This one looks delightful.
I think this one's like a blueberry lemon filled. Yeah. This one threw me off because it's like a strawberry. I thought it was like a strawberry shortcake, but it has chocolate in it, but it's fucking good. This one's coconut. They're all filled. This is coconut. That is like a crackling donut. So some good ASMR. That one's some kind of cookie crumble thing. Yeah, I can move my sushi because I feel like we're in like donut station now, right?
Whoa, donut station now. Oh dear. Where are these from?
They're from Bloomers.
Boomers, okay.
Bloomers.
Oh, look at some.
I can get you like a fresh, non-savory plate. And then I have knives. Okay. Wait. Oh yeah, you shared a bad disclosure. Okay,
I've never like messed up a disclosure. Basically, is
Yeah.
the point.
I'm trying to think a good disclosure. Did I leave?
I've disclosed to people who told me they also have it, but they didn't know who I was. It happened like one time. Someone was like, "We're in the same boat," and I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "I have it too," and I was really, but like you don't know who I am, like you haven't seen my TikTok, but you also have it.
Wow.
That was like one time, but
yeah.
once again, like just because you both have something doesn't mean you're compatible.
Right.
It's like we never met each other, and dating is hard in general.
It is, yeah. I have had a few really good ones. I'm trying to think one that stands out. But I think one where, well, okay, one that was great was like, it was someone that kind of knew me off my TikToks already. And I just loved the way they said it, because like they already knew, but once we started talking, I was like, okay, so like I know you've watched my TikToks, like you obviously know I have herpes, like how do you feel about that? And they were just like, if breaking your back helps the herpes stigma, then I'm down for it.
Yep.
And I liked that because it was like an act of service, you know what I mean, to the herpes
Love language,
cause, you know? So I thought that was great. And I've had a disclosure too where the person realized they also had it, but then it kind of went south because they told me all these symptoms that they were having, that they kind of had a flare up like every month or every couple months, but they thought it was just like irritation. And I was like, well, you really should go get that looked at because I can't diagnose you. And then they were like, yeah, I really should, kind of thing. And they were already dealing with like they had chlamydia. They were already like dealing with
Classic.
that.
Yep.
And then I checked in a few months later and I was like, so did you ever get tested? And they were like, no, I don't think I have it. I just don't think I have it. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to continue this conversation then. Like, how do you go from like, I have all these symptoms and I think I have it too,
It's
to,
better if I don't know.
I'm just going to decide I don't have it. So, I mean, those were still good ones. A bad one.
Watch out, everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. A bad one would be like, oh, and it does get to me because I'm like, go get tested. Like, how would you ignore that? But anyways, a bad one, or one, it's funny because like I talked about it in my story the other day, but like this is the closest thing to one that I thought I kind of messed up, but it ended up working out anyways, sort of. Like the person was only in town for like 2 days, so I was like really stressed that like I would have to squeeze them in so quickly, and my mind was like racing, and I was like, I can't do this, it's too nerve-wracking. And I don't know, instead of just being like, no thanks, I was just like, I'm just gonna try to scare them away. Which I rarely do with herpes, like I don't want to do that. But I was just like, first of all, I'm not gonna sleep with you. Like, so if this is about getting laid, it's not gonna happen, because I already decided I don't want to like sleep with this person and have them like jet off to like back home to another country. So I was like, first of all, I'm not gonna sleep with you. Second, I hate long distance. And third, I have herpes. And then their response was just like, oof, like, oy. And I was like, to which part? Because I never usually give a whole like list of things. So at the time I was thinking like, I fucked up. Like, I wish I was just spontaneous. Like, I could have just met up with this guy, told him in person, had a fun night. But I guess my gut was just feeling like it wouldn't make me feel good, so I wanted
Always
to sabotage.
trust your gut, people, okay?
Yeah.
Just like many
100%.
situations, just in general.
100%. And I think that was the thing. My gut felt like something was off, so I decided to sabotage it. Our mind works in weird ways. But, yeah, he was like, the oof part is to the herpes. So then I was like, okay, well, here's some like info about it. Like, I just like gave him some basic, you know, points about it being common and like whatever. And then he asked me if I live alone. So I was like, I guess that means he's okay with it now. But I also said I wasn't going to sleep with him, so I don't understand what he's trying to do. And I just unmatched. So bye.
Dating in 2022. Just
Bye. You gotta try like try this like crackling one. I just love that it's like, hold on, like
Ooh.
some
A little ASMR.
You gotta like cut it, like, bite into it. Oh, I have a mic.
Some real ASMR here. Got some camera here.
Yes. Oh my god, yeah, we should bite into it. We should cut it in half and both bite into it, like in front of the camera.
I don't even know how to do this. Like, what is this made of?
I don't know.
It's like an ice rink.
I think it's just like a sugar ice rink, yeah. So, ew, it has
it's
apple.
Like an apple.
I don't like that, but I'll take a bite.
You don't like the apple?
No. There's so much apple in it. I
Oh,
don't
the
like
bottom's like very, very.
Yeah, it's kind of like a soggy bottom. Where's the thing? Soggy bottom donut.
ASMR.
Okay, cheers. Herpes pals. It's too much apple. But the crackle part is good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a complicated apple fritter. Daddy issues.
Okay, how do you deal with the thought of maybe passing herpes to someone you care about?
As long as they know and you've disclosed, then there's a risk. Obviously, there's also a risk to like them being with someone else too. And obviously, like if I passed it to someone that I cared about and didn't want to pass it to, like I would obviously feel some sort of guilt, and like I would have to like look after them and be like, it is gonna be okay, like at least you have me to tell you that. But I don't know if I could ever pass it and like not care, like not feel some sort of like darn. But
yeah, I think if it happened, I would definitely want to like support them through it. But I think too there's an element to that of like we really like we can be in a situation where we're with somebody and we're constantly worried we're gonna pass it to them because we obviously don't want to. But we have to remember that like someone who's like aware and willing to, not even willing, but because like it's a normal thing, but someone who's aware and knows that you have it is taking responsibility for their own, like they're down, you know what I mean? They're aware of the risk, they're aware that they could get it, but they could also just as easily get it with somebody whose status they don't know, right? You're arguably as safe, maybe even a safer partner than the average person because you know, like, I don't know, that's kind of how I see it. But I've heard from people who've like, you know, unfortunately pushed partners who really cared about them away because they couldn't get over like the worry of giving it to them. Even though their partner was like, I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it, I'm okay with it. So I would say like, if you're with somebody that you care about and they know and they're okay with it and you're really struggling, I would see that as like a self thing to work on. Like, you know, like, cause that's more of like an anxiety thing. And it's understandable and it speaks to like how much you care about this person. But at a certain point you just have to, you know, accept the other person's presence and decision to be there. Yeah.
I have a question from a good friend of mine. They say, okay, I have to read this. In terms of dating, I have not truly deemed anyone worthy of knowing my status with HSV2. Almost as if no one is worthy of me or my time anymore based on the knowledge and life lessons the diagnosis has taught me. Is this something you deal with? Any advice on how to get over this God complex it has given me?
Wow.
This is from like someone who's like they're not like that at all. So like I can understand like they feel this way, but they're not like self-centered in this way.
Right,
but
right.
they feel like no one is been worth it yet, or they feel like it's holding them back and stuff because they haven't dated in a while. Like they're just sort of put off from dating.
And they've just learned so much from it that
Yeah.
they feel like no one can match up to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that so many people have been through so many different things that like we don't know about and we're not privy to until we get to know them more. And to just give people a chance, because like your cross to bear, so to speak, might be herpes, but someone else might have another experience that really taught them a lot, you know? Like I had someone disclose a health issue to me, not that herpes is like a health issue, but they disclosed something to me that I didn't know a lot about, and that was really heavy for them, and gave them a different perspective on life and stuff. And I was just really humbled by that wisdom it brought, and like my lack of understanding of like what that experience would be like. So I don't know if that's like exactly what they're asking, but I would say like, you know, we just don't like, we don't know till we're there. Like we can't guess what partners are going to be like or what their emotional depth is going to be. I do think I learned a hell of a lot from having herpes, for sure. And it taught me so much self-worth that like I don't lower myself or my standards.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe even more so than in the past.
Yeah, it would be like my advice for this person, because like if you typically date the same type of people who probably would respond the same way that other people have responded in the past, maybe like think about that. Think about like if the same sort of like asshole is gonna just judge you, maybe your God complex is telling you that like these are not the right people to pursue. Mm-hmm. So that's why.
That's why herpes is a filter.
Exactly.
It can reveal people's character. That's why sometimes if someone unmatched me or ghosted after a disclosure, they don't really have the kind of like nuance and depth I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like technically my first disclosure was successful, and like because they liked me for me, as opposed to like, oh, I don't want to date someone with herpes. They wanted to, I guess, date me in general. So it's fine. There's lots of people out there.
Yes, plenty of fish in the sea. Concerns regarding HSV1 down south, breakouts near the back entrance. There's a sweating emoji face, sweating smile emoji face, symptoms, etc. So, let me think. Concerns regarding HSV1 down south, breakouts near the back entrance. I wonder, like, I understand that. Like, your flare-ups can kind of like migrate. I don't know if yours does. Like, it can show up in the exact same spot every time, or it can kind of migrate a couple inches like up or down or whatever. And mine can, it's like I'll get one blister that often is like hard to even recognize, and it'll show up like anywhere in that area for me. Does yours like move around, or is it always in the same spot? I know that wasn't exactly the question, but
So I've had like the first outbreak was basically all over, including my pubic area. Most was on my pubic area, and then I've had like one outbreak like on my actual private parts. That was the second one, and then I actually have an outbreak right now for the first time in like 3 months. So
oh wow!
what happened like last night, just because April was a terrible month. But yeah, it's in the same spot as usual, which is like my pubic area, like on the right side, and like specifically it's just that location 90% of the time. I think one time I had it on the opposite side. That one's on TikTok, you can go watch it, but
Yeah, the picture.
but yeah, it's like most of the time in one specific location on my pubic area. And I literally can feel, like last night, it was like this burning, tingling in a specific place, and then today it's there. Doesn't really move for me, but it could.
Mhm.
And as far as I know, I think it's like wherever the virus enters is where the outbreak happens or something. That's what I think.
Can it enter through like multiple spots at the same time? Because someone told me that they like,
I mean, probably.
yeah.
Just because, like, if the virus is, like, trying to get in, maybe it just... Yeah, I guess it's, like, whatever... It'll go in, but it'll probably, like, only...
But come out, yeah.
Like, it'll... Wherever it, like, stations itself.
Right,
even
right.
if it's, like, you know... Because, like, war, you know? A bunch of soldiers go in, but maybe some get killed off. But, yeah. But in terms of this person's question, like, if you have genital herpes in general... You can get outbreaks like on the front and the back,
Yeah.
and it could possibly change and stuff. And I guess like precautions. But when it comes to that, I don't actually know about how transmission would occur. Like,
like is it the whole general area or like exactly the area where a flare up would be?
Should have asked the experts that. Maybe I'll ask Ina one time. But yeah, because like.
I think it's maybe where you, from what my understanding is, where you would typically get a flare-up. So if it typically is in the back door area, let's just say butt, anus, whatever, you know, that's where you feel your tingles or like sensation, and that's where it crops up. That is probably where you're like shedding from. But I do often wonder, it's like, am I just shedding in that general vicinity, like all of it? And I mean, it wouldn't matter, because even if I had it like at the back door, I wouldn't be like, front door only, babe, you know what I mean? Just avoid the back door tonight and we're good. I would I wouldn't risk anything. Like I would abstain, period, until it's over. So yeah.
That's why it's because like if someone has genital herpes, can you get it from them through like anal sex?
Right. Like I would still abstain just in case, because it could be shedding in that general vicinity maybe. And I also probably wouldn't, I mean, there is something to be said about like if you're having a flare up and you know you're with a partner, they're aware that you have it, they're aware you have a flare up, like you can get creative and work around it. Some couples might not worry about it or care, you know what I mean? So it is kind of up to everybody. So it's not to say that like you can't engage in anything, but if you're worried about transmitting it or your partner's worried about it, then it's best to abstain while you have a flare up. But you can get creative, and obviously if you're having, like I've had some people think that even though you have genital herpes, you can still transmit it kissing, which is like completely untrue, because it's not, or you don't have it orally. So you can still engage sexually in different ways that you're comfortable with, where there isn't a flare-up present. Like it's up to you, you know? It's blowjob week while you have genital herpes flare-up.
Yeah. You can get juicy if you want.
You have a juicy question?
Yeah, would love to
Let's
hear
do it.
about both of your current dating lives.
Oh. You first.
How much detail do you want to do? Not much. We'll go.
I mean, we just talked about like anal sex,
We
blowjobs.
did, yeah. Well, at the beginning of April, someone found out I had herpes on a dating app. Well, I was actually through social media, but the same person ended up going to the doctor because they got genital HSV1 like a couple days before matching with me.
Wow.
So they have genital HSV1, I have genital HSV2, and we hit it off, and have been casually seeing each other this month. Not sure what's happening, because that's just dating in general. There isn't really any concern for like transmission though as well. Like they're not very concerned, I guess, with like, they didn't take it as hard as like some people do take it.
Because you can like, it's like the irony, we were talking about this earlier, but you having, or us having HSV2 tend to have protection against HSV1, is that right?
Yeah.
But with HSV1, you can also acquire HSV2. And a lot of people do have both strains, whether they're both in the same location or different locations. But yeah, like how did the conversations go around it and risks and stuff?
Well, honestly, there's no precautions being taken, despite there still being a risk for them. I don't really know like what else to say. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Like
it's up to every couple.
Yeah,
or
like
situation.
it's in this particular situation, even though there is still a risk for them, we don't talk about it and we don't think about the risk, and it's not an ignorance thing. It's like a we don't care thing.
Yeah. And it is okay not to care.
And I don't take antivirals daily anymore, so that's another thing too. Like
Yeah.
there's no precautions and nothing has really happened, and it takes a long time though to go through the dating pool. That's all I'm gonna say. Like
Yeah.
there's gonna be like months of like, well, that's another person I'm just never gonna speak to again, and this person and this person and this person.
And for various reasons,
Yeah.
not necessarily just.
Yeah, I guess like to go on the other dating like stories and stuff, like most people never get to the point where I disclose, or they find out through social media and like we don't ever meet, or like it's I'm rarely heartbroken by dating with herpes is what I'm gonna say. It's just not doesn't really go anywhere. Or
Have you had your heart broken at all?
I don't know.
Has your heart been broken?
I've been traumatized by relationships in the past that I was like naive to. Yes, there was a certain someone who I thought all girls wanted commitment. Some of them don't, and if you show an interest, then maybe not a good idea. Maybe so. I learned the hard way. Like, oh, you can just ghost someone out of a relationship. Okay.
Wow, yeah. I know. There's so many ways things go south for sure. I always ask people like what they're looking for. I mean, they might not necessarily be honest or no, but they actually added a prompt, or not a prompt, but like a thing on Hinge now where you say what you're looking for. But I find that such a helpful question. But yeah, I mean, I try to like tell people like it's okay to, like, I've heard from people in this situation before where like they don't care about getting it, they're not worried about it, they're not scared of it. I mean, again, I always bring it back to cold sores and people with oral herpes because they don't typically even think about it or care, and so there's a stigma to how like we have to care and we have to worry and we have to use precautions, because like if you and your partner decide not to, like, go for it, you're not 100% gonna be like, you're not even gonna like necessarily pass it on to someone without any precautions. Even if you have an active flare-up and engage in something with both people's consent, it's not 100% someone's gonna get it. Like, people think it's like a one and done deal, but viruses are trickier than that, so dating is yeah. So I mean, for me, I would say like through quite a bit of COVID, I was pretty isolated because I had some pretty like traumatic experiences in my previous relationships. So I was like taking a lot of time to heal, but I was still going on dates, I was still matching, seeing people, talking to people. Just nothing, like I'm not ready for like a relationship or anything serious, and I'm still not after like 2+ years. I was like married for a long time before that, so my thing is just kind of meeting different people, exploring myself, exploring my sexuality, taking it easy. Obviously I still want like a deep connection from time to time, or just like mutual self-respect. I want to feel safe in the situation, but it's like so many people just don't even make it through like a basic vetting of like, do I want to like interact with this person or date them at all, you know what I mean? So herpes is certainly not my like main issue or concern, because it's a lot more about vetting the people that I'm talking to or like allowing into my space. And I have like a lot of like fears and traumas around like dating
Everything.
and sex, that have nothing to do with herpes that sometimes get in the way for me. So, you know, I'm like always suspicious that no one's trustworthy. People are always like lying or cheating because like I'm jaded, you know. But I still have my fun. I still have had my fun. It hasn't stopped me. And my summer, I've pledged this summer to be a hot girl herpes summer. So
Hot girl herpes summer.
yes, if anybody wants to join.
Get some t-shirts made.
Yeah, this one's good. How would you deal with an ex threatening to tell everyone and shaming you? And I think that can go for like friends too, because I've heard so many people worry about this with friends, threatening to out them.
And this is for someone that's not like us because we're public about it. This is for someone who's like...
Right, because I would be like, fucking go for it.
Yeah, like that's the thing. So for someone who's not open about it, you need to figure out, you need to decide yourself if you still feel ashamed if people know. Because oftentimes I'll talk to people and they'll be like, I'm scared if people find out. And then I just say, what if everyone knows? And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, so ask yourself that, like, what if everyone knows that you have herpes? Some people may not date you, but the same thing is true, like, if you disclose to them. And like, I also have to understand that, like, we live in Toronto, like, nobody knows who you are here, basically, and it doesn't matter. But if you live in like a small, this nice conservative American town, I do have to understand that, like, word gets around that you could be the herpes girl or the herpes guy,
Right.
and that's like a concern. But the first thing you have to do is like figure out how you feel about yourself. Like, does this change who you are, and does this make yourself dirty? And you have to get to the point where you're like almost arrogant, to the point where you're like, well, yeah, I have this. Boo.
Exactly. Like, I would turn it, like, you kind of have no choice at that point, as brutal as it is, to turn it against the other people and make them look stupid and silly for trying to use it against you. So, like, I would almost just, like, as hard as it is, I would take on the approach of being like, yeah, so, like, and, you know what I mean? And then internally maybe, like, cry through it and have a hard time, but at the outset, just being like, this, because it's almost like, in the when you look at like bullying, right, like it's almost like I mean, I know there's like different types of advice for like how to handle bullying and how to deal with bullying, but when you like really let it get to you or show how much it gets to you, like that's what they want. And in this situation, that person wants to shame you into silence and like, you know, use it to damage you and harm your reputation or whatever. And that's not going to hold any weight or bearing if you're like, I don't care. You know what I mean? It loses. It's like, oh, I'm going to tell everyone that you have herpes. And it's like, go for it, loser. And then like, they probably won't even do it because they'll be like, oh, it doesn't even bother them. You know? But it is like an awful thing for someone to do, and it's really stupid because they're gonna end up getting herpes one day.
Oh no, damn.
I don't know what else you could do. I mean, that's really the best thing I'd suggest. Especially
own it
an
so that
ex.
it's like not a weakness. Like, own it so that it's not something anyone can use against you.
Yeah. Is it safe to touch my partner's HSV2 genitals if he's not having an outbreak?
No, you can never touch your partner ever again now that they have herpes. Like,
Absolutely safe.
basically the only like transmission risk people should ever think about is like when you don't have symptoms, basically. Because if you're a smart person and your partner is not infected, you're probably not going to have sex or put them at risk during an outbreak. So, like, the only time you have to think about the risk is when there's no flare-up. And the risk is going to be smaller, obviously, but, like, there's still a small risk all the time. So, unless you're just never having sex with your partner ever again, there's no way to not, like, touch your partner when, like, you get the point?
Like, there's always some risk, and that's the case even with someone who's
Like if you're
herpes
not
status,
touching
you
your
don't know.
partner when they don't have an outbreak,
Then you're never touching.
Yeah,
you're never touching. It's the same idea if you were dating someone who gets cold sores. Are you never going to kiss when a cold sore is absent, right? But it's an interesting point you bring up, because the reason that they say most often herpes spreads asymptomatically is because A, most people don't know they have it, and B, we often don't engage in sex when we have a flare-up. So there's more transmission outside of a flare-up, because that's usually like if someone has herpes and knows it, they're not having sex during a flare-up. It doesn't mean that you're more likely to transmit outside of flare-up. It's just that if it happens, it's probably going to be outside of a flare-up because you were shedding or one was coming and you didn't realize or whatever, right? I don't know if that scares people more. But yeah, if you're not going to touch genitals outside of flare-up, you're not touching any genitals.
Exactly, yeah.
Ever.
And like the next person that you touch who doesn't have an outbreak that you don't know doesn't have herpes is the same situation. Like,
exact same situation, because you don't know their status and they don't know either. So it's the same risk.
And like the people I talked to, like the experts I talked to, I asked, like, are people actually asymptomatic, or are they just getting symptoms occasionally that they have no idea is herpes and are just like in denial? And like Terry Warren said that most people have such mild symptoms that they don't think it's herpes, less so than like people actually never having symptoms. But
that makes sense, because I noticed one of my prodrome symptoms is that like tingling, burning skin. And for a long time, I thought it was just a symptom of my period coming. Like, because I read it can be hormonal, like you can have sensitive skin during your cycle, like parts of your cycle. And I've been taking the valcyclovir daily for the last like few months, because I was getting like a flare-up almost monthly for the last while. And that symptom completely stopped. So like I didn't realize that was a prodrome symptom, and that would mean I'm shedding while that's happening potentially, right? Probably. So like if that's your only symptom, which I know so many people, that's their only symptom, is they get like a tingling, burning skin sensation, but nothing ever comes up, you would never necessarily attribute that to herpes if you didn't know. So you could have it and have that be your only symptom, which is kind of wild. And even some of like my recurring flare-ups now, I can barely see them. Like I have to look so close, and it's kind of like the picture you posted. It's just like a little red bump. Like sometimes it'll blister.
I mean, I have an outbreak right now and I feel nothing.
Yeah.
So.
And you're not on Valtrex right now, so it's not even.
Like I just took some to like help clear it up, but I'm not taking it daily. And that's another thing too, is like I thought that my outbreaks were so mild because of the antivirals, but like this is the same level of like severity, and I haven't taken them since the end of March. So
that kind of leads to another question someone asked, because they said their doctor recommended that they take Valtrex daily for a year to see if their outbreaks stop. Have you like seen any information around that? Like, because I've heard that too, like taking it for a period of time will slow it down, but then I've heard people who think that it makes it worse, and like it's all over the map.
So I don't know. Like my timeline was I got diagnosed in September, and then I took, I guess, the antivirals to help clear things up, and then I didn't take anything in October, and then the middle of November I started taking like daily antivirals, essentially like for up until now. So did I give my body enough time to like build up its own immune response? I don't know. Did that contribute to me having like more frequent outbreaks because I was just like trying to subdue it with valacyclovir, which is why I kind of stopped. I wanted to see if like my body would need to get used to it. So if you're someone who's like had it for like 2 or 3 or 4 years and you're still having like consistent outbreaks now, then like I would suggest taking them at least until you can like change your lifestyle or change something that's obviously causing it, or figure out what else is causing it. But in terms of like if you're just at the beginning stages too, and you're having so many, like, talk to your doctor about that, because I've been trying to experiment and see, is my outbreaks better or worse because I didn't have like a significant amount of time not taking antivirals daily. But for me, I was taking it for like the transmission rate decretion, if that's even a word, but
Decretion.
I think it is a word, but I keep saying, I'm always kind of like, for the decretion.
I just think of like secretion
Yes,
and like,
yeah.
this is a very childish reason to
But
laugh.
talk to your doctor. But some people think it's a lifesaver and some people think it doesn't do anything, but
I need to see if decretion is a word.
I think it is.
I hope so, because it's an awesome word. Why do I think it's funny? Yeah, the act of decreasing.
Decretion. The transmission rate decretion.
Why did I find that funny?
Because
it rhymes with secretion?
Maybe.
Secretion's not
Yeah.
funny. What's wrong with me? I'm like a child. I will say someone asked, how can I prevent an outbreak before my period? So, like, I can't speak to this much because I'm not on the medical, nutritional side or anything of this, but I was experiencing, like, monthly flare-ups that seemed to be tied to my cycle as well. They would come either before or after my period. And I was worried that, and I know this is such a common experience for so many people who menstruate, but like, I was worried that because it's tied to my period, it's done for. Like now I'm always gonna get it during my period unless I get rid of my period. And I've heard some people suggest, well, maybe there's like a hormone treatment or birth control you can go on to change that. I asked my doctor about it. My doctor said that it's not the hormones causing it, but it's speaking to something that's happening in that moment of your cycle that might be compromising your immune system and causing it to come up, or you're just vulnerable at that time. Like, you know, I don't know if it's like when we're PMSing, we're more prone to getting sick. I don't know if that's a thing. But I know like Adrian, our like local herpes friend, Adrian has herpes and talks about it. She's a nutritionist. She's had herpes for like 20 years. So she has like really good info on how to like approach that particular issue, because I've even consulted her about it. And it's basically things like, you know, your flare-ups can come up anytime your immune system is compromised, which could mean stress, lack of sleep, blah, blah, blah. And usually it comes down to just like doing things to build up your immune system or strengthen your immune system. And that relates to like gut health. So it's also things that strengthen or help with your gut health, and that in turn benefits your hormone cycle. So there's definitely approaches to it, and I'm not 100% sure what they are, but I just want to say, if you're someone who's getting flare-ups tied to your period, don't worry, because that doesn't mean that it is forever tied to your period. It's just sort of coming up more frequently and seeing that as an opportunistic time. But it can just like randomly decide to stop doing that, you know, after your body gets used to it. So yeah, there's ways to work around that. Right?
I wouldn't know, but yeah.
The period. I think they said that men like cis men have like a 24-hour hormone cycle. It's almost like you have a cycle every day. But like, so you go through like thing, but I don't know if that's true.
Oh, that's interesting actually. I might look into that.
Don't quote me on it.
Can I swim in a pool with others during an outbreak, and do chemicals protect others? I mean, yeah.
Herpes won't transmit through water. Like it has to be skin to skin contact, right?
And like, it's not gonna, even like hot tubs, even like,
A bath.
yeah, even like a bath, I'm sure you couldn't transmit it that way.
No, I think the moment it leaves your body, like it dies usually, right? I know that it can live on some surfaces for a bit, but I'm pretty sure water like denatures it.
Yeah, I think people like who are recently diagnosed, they take like a very extreme. Even I did that at the beginning.
I was
like,
so
yeah,
paranoid at the
yeah.
beginning. Oh my god. I was worried about like anyone touching my towel.
Mhm.
I was like, I would wash my hands like 10 times before I took my contacts out. Like, I was freaking out.
And then after a while, you just like stop caring. You're just, like,
Yeah.
it gets easier, it gets better, and then you forget that you even have it. And then you get a partner, and then you forget that you even have it even more, and then
Yeah.
then you look back in 20 years, and you're like, wow, such an insignificant thing now.
Don't make them. Someone was talking to me the other day in a group Zoom I did, and they were so sweet and kind to share this, but they were like, they had it for over 20 years themselves. They were older, and they were just like, I didn't date for most of my 20s and like 30s because of it, and like, do not do that. Don't make the same mistake, because they were just like, it took me that long to finally find comfort in myself. And mind you, they got it before there was anyone speaking out about it on social media, before social media was even a thing. So there were probably a lot less access to resources that we have today, but like, don't deprive yourself of dating over this. Like,
What if your first disclosure is your last disclosure?
yeah, that could be a t-shirt too.
Yeah. Or what if your first disclosure is someone who also has to disclose to you?
Yeah.
Because I'll say this too, like there's girls that I've seen on Positive Singles that I've also seen on regular dating apps. So I can assume that if anyone was to match with these girls on Hinge or Bumble or Tinder, they would have to disclose to them. So like if you're on regular dating apps, whether you're a guy or a girl, there's other people on there that have herpes and that will have to disclose to you. Because
Actually,
I've seen it. Like,
I want to know, because I hear from like guys dating girls, and I hear it in my comments a lot, but this idea that it's harder as a guy with herpes who's dating women because it's like women are less accepted. Like, is that a true experience that you could relate to or find?
I saw some like these like triggered guys in like the herpes support groups who were saying like, it's a big deal, like my life is over, and like, yeah, like it's obviously, how do I say it? If you're gonna do poorly in dating without herpes, you're probably gonna do like slightly worse now that you have herpes. But then it's still within your control to like make yourself a better person or make yourself more desirable, make yourself all of these things. Like, it may be a roadblock for both people and maybe for guys as well, just because like, I don't know, it's a lot of single guys out there who get angry and like, you know, the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's those kinds of guys.
They're my trolls.
It's like the older like forever single like versions of me who would like like they get to the point where they're just like, because I like I know that whole demographic where it's like
like incel vibes.
sort of like that, yeah. Like yeah, the sort of
just
thing.
very bitter.
Yeah. But like it's
Don't let yourself get there.
Yeah.
As a man, please, because then you end up coming on our comments and calling us whores for having herpes. But yeah, like, I wouldn't say that one gender is more or less accepting, or any gender. You know, it's a genderless thing.
Yeah.
I know we're still socialized differently, but I think that I've heard from just as many women who date men and feel like men are either super accepting or not, and men who date women who think that women are either super accepting or not. So I think it does vary on someone's personal experience, and there might be other factors at play with their approach to dating that are important to know in that context, because they might have been struggling without it, you know?
Yeah, like to summarize the difference, like essentially girls have to be more careful about a guy having herpes because like, you know, it's easier for them to get it and there's like pregnancy as a factor. Not that it matters, but like a guy is not going to get pregnant in general. So a girl is going to be more particular, but a girl is also probably going to be less judgmental, versus a guy is probably going to be more judgmental towards a girl with herpes, but a guy is obviously going to think with his penis more and probably accept you without thinking too much as well. So that's the two things where it's like guys will judge you, but they'll probably still want to have sex with you, and girls will still judge you, but less, from like if judging me basically, and they also have to like think more like, how does this impact me? So that's how.
What did that girl say whose audio you played? She was like, I'm just trying to be a fuck boy.
I was just trying to fucking leave or something. And I don't know.
I love it.
She was nice though.
Yeah. Herpes, STDs, or STIs, or both?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. But essentially, like a disease is like something that, like, so herpes is like an infection, but the act of like having ongoing outbreaks periodically is the disease. So it doesn't really make a difference, versus like, I guess chlamydia is like an STI that doesn't necessarily like lead to a ongoing disease.
But can. Well, I guess not ongoing, but it can lead to complications.
Yeah.
That's where it's confusing, because like
Yeah.
some STIs can become diseases and some STDs act like STIs. And what I've recently learned is that like in the context of sexual health, they're starting to move away from STD and categorize things as STIs, because like everything starts out as an STI, and because it's like so tricky between what becomes categorically a disease and what doesn't, it's kind of like more like a more suitable blanket term to say STI. And herpes is technically noted as a viral infection. But yeah, they're, from my understanding, they're moving towards saying STI, and even just like in terms of semantics, the word disease in the context of sexual health has become stigmatized and like used against people, and scared people away from like getting tested and disclosing. That's another reason they're moving away from STD and saying STI. And like I brought this up before, and people argue that like, well, scientifically disease is still different from infection. Yeah, like in general terms, there's a difference between the word infection and disease, but in the context of sexual health, it's like STI is just a better umbrella term for all of it. And like, even if you don't take the word disease or STD personally, like, we know I've said that, like, just judging even from my own comment section, I've had so many people use the word disease against me. Like, they're just like, well, you're diseased, or like, have fun with your disease. You have an STD. Like, I don't want someone with STDs. Like, STI just sounds nicer. It's less harmful to be like, well, enjoy your infection. You know? So it's a weird thing.
It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is like HSV1 can be an STD and STI, and HSV2 can be an STD.
Yeah, like they're interchangeable, really.
Yeah.
So we did get some more like common questions that I think like we've answered quite a bit in both of our like TikToks and videos. Like, obviously, as you're watching this, we both have YouTube channels. Like, I have a couple of videos on my channel going in depth into like general sort of herpes questions and info and my whole story about it. And then my TikTok has a bunch. And then I'm working on a guide to accepting your herpes with sensuality, because I'm also a sensual guide. And I know you're working on some stuff too.
Yes, I'm making a course essentially explaining like how I overcame HSV, like how I broke free from HSV through like information, and then like a philosophical, like a mental aspect, like realizing how I feel about myself, and then like learning how to disclose, and then learning how to like still stay social and stuff, and like working on your physical health as well, whether it's for appearance or whether it's for like your immune system, and then just like, you know, putting everything together. Because I think oftentimes people will come on and ask me like, hey, how do I disclose? And like, if you don't have everything else figured out about yourself, it doesn't really make a difference. Because like, the analogy I use is like, after your diagnosis, you're like a car that's like, the wheels are off and the engine is out and you're like in a garage, like just abandoned somewhere. And like, you know, just like putting tires on you is like teaching how to disclose. But like, if your car is not like functioning with everything else, like it's not going to go anywhere.
Wow.
And you have to like do like a restoration on the car so that it can just get everywhere.
Good metaphor.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like, because people are like, how do I disclose? I'm like, are you okay with this?
Yeah.
They're like, no. I'm like, okay, you need to figure out everything else first. I'm like, you know?
Totally. I agree.
That's what I'm doing.
Nice.
Focusing on that.
Well, we've eaten a lot of food and some donuts. I'm pretty damn full.
Yeah,
I have been looking at this and wondering what the heck it is, though.
It's herpes.
Herpes on a donut. Is it a crackling thing?
Maybe.
Anyway, thanks for watching.
Yeah, I'm gonna link. I guess we're both gonna link the like YouTube channels and then Instagram, and I'll link Adrian's as well because Adrian's got great information as well.
Yes.
And
there's so many great herpes advocates out there. There's more and more every day.
Yes, I will link all of the ones that I think are beneficial in the description box, and
I'll do the same.
you guys can live your best life.
What's your sign off usually? It's like love you, miss you, see you soon.
Forgot about that. Love you, miss you, hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
It used to be a bunch of things, but yeah.
I love it.
Love you, miss you, hope you're doing well.
Love you, miss you. Should we do it at the same time?
Sure.
Okay, ready?
This is awkward now.
2, 3.
Love you, miss you,
hope you're doing well.
See you in the next video, guys.
Bye. Bye.